So our topic is immigrant students struggles with a focus on undocumented students.
Put the slideshow first.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
The slideshow.
Sorry about that. Okay, so our table of contents, we're going to go over the introduction, the process, the research question, the matrix, and the themes and studies, as well as the conclusion and the gaps. Okay, our introduction. So, immigrant students go through so much to come to this country for a better future for themselves. We must help protect and educate the students at all costs by eliminating deficit thinking and low self-esteem, and by making sure that teachers educate these young children to get a better support system within the schools to teach to better help the students who need them the most. And this is our research process. This is pretty much what we did to pretty much do the paper. We chose the topic, we met with the librarian, we created a research question, created a matrix, and chose the themes, and then wrote the paper, and we also created a survey. So this is a research question. What practices can schools and colleges use to support immigrant students, particularly those who are undocumented? This is what the matrix looked like. We had more themes, but we definitely couldn't fit it in here. And these are the themes that we're going to be going over. So it's going to be deficit thinking, lack of focus on immigrant students, identity crisis in immigrant students, challenges faced by immigrant and undocumented students, lack of confidence and self-esteem, as well as inadequate preparation for support for ESL and bilingual teachers.
So our first theme is deficit thinking. The problem with deficit thinking and the deficit ideology is that it causes minoritized students to feel like they don't belong and that they're not capable of being academically successful due to stereotypes that have been created around minoritized and low-income immigrant students. I like this quote that says how this theory blames the victim, which refers to the students, rather than looking at the bigger picture and looking at how schools or districts and teachers can find resources and different approaches to help these students. Deficit thinking does do a lot of damage to these children, and so this is something that we should be able to figure out in districts and how they can tackle and challenge this theory. Lack of focus in immigrant students. This article by Ruiz says that in one way or another, different immigrant students are looked down on in school and in society, which is why it's crucial for educators in schools and districts to focus and help these this group of immigrant students more. Inadequate preparation and support for ESL and bilingual teachers. Teachers sadly do not have the support, and usually they're not given the proper training to support these students when they need it. And it's also not based on who needs it, but it's also based on individual needs. Also, they have a higher ratio of kids with just one teacher, so it's a lot for one single teacher to handle. The article does mention that training ESL-ready teachers has not been a priority, and there's some examples where these teachers can be certified ESL teachers, and sadly, they won't be familiar with the language. And so if they're not familiar with the language themselves, then how can we expect and how does the school expect to help these students learn a language when most of these students have trouble learning the language or are not familiar at all and they're just beginning? You can go with this.
Okay. Identity crisis in immigrant students. I'm so sorry. I chose this quote that I really liked, and it says, if identity is always elusive, the issue for immigrants and the choices required of them are even more so. So pretty much, individuals who migrate experience multiple stress factors that can impact their mental well-being, such as like loss of cultural norms, religious customs, and social support systems, adjustments to a new culture, and changes in identity or concept of self. So, who is an undocumented immigrant? The National Immigration Law Center defines undocumented immigrants as foreign nationals who enter the United States one of three ways: one, without inspection; two, with falsified documents; and three, with a legal non-immigrant visa, such as a tourist visa that later expired while the holder was still in the United States.
Undocumented students. Over 2 million of the about 11 million immigrants are classified as students of college age or younger. These millions of people hail from all over the world. And there's this question that says, when and why do undocumented students immigrate to the United States? And no matter their countries of origin, nearly all undocumented students were brought to the United States when they were small children, as the article states, by Immigrants Rising. And as children at the time of their border crossings, they often don't realize that their immigration status is illegal until they are well into their high school years. These students live in the country for most of their lives, and they struggle with learning to speak English, sometimes without help, sometimes they have to learn by themselves. And these students also do graduate from high schools across the nation. And this is a chart that says, well, as the title says, 450,000 undocumented immigrants in U.S. universities, and it divides them up by different states.
Undocumented student struggles. So they go through financial obstacles like high poverty rates for undocumented immigrants, increasing tuition costs, no access to some forms of financial aid. Some legal obstacles would be temporary or no authorization to work, no social security number, no path to citizenship or permanent residency. Some social obstacles would be negative stigma associated with illegal immigration, fear of deportation, mistrust of friends and teachers, language barriers, families divided across the border, lack of support for from high schools, and misinformation on eligibility and rights. Wait, I'm sorry.
This was supposed to be on a different slide, but lack of confidence and self-esteem, which goes with emotional stability and self-confidence affected. This group of students tend to have lower self-esteem and feel socially isolated due to their status and not speaking or knowing the language. Well, in this case, it's English. Students end up doubting themselves, feeling like they won't be successful or that they're not good enough to succeed, not just in society, but school-wise. So in this case, if like high school students will have doubts and not knowing if they'll even be able to continue with college. And some solutions, an article by Connings provides a few challenges that immigrants may encounter in education. However, it also provides a few solutions, such as expanding English learning programs, removing enrollment barriers altogether, and offering therapy to its students.
Okay, we're gonna also go over DACA, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. In the United States, immigration policy that allows some individuals with unlawful presence in the United States after being brought to the country as children to receive a renewable 2-year period of deferred action from deportation and become eligible for employment authorization document, which would be like a work permit in the U.S. To be eligible for this program, recipients cannot have felonies or serious misdemeanors on their records. Unlike the proposed DREAM Act, DACA does not provide a path to citizenship for recipients.
So some main gaps that we found in our literature was that helping ESL teachers get extra help to address different cultural issues besides the regular help that most teachers get. how college and universities can really help undocumented students feel like they belong, not just in the classroom, but to be able to help them fit in society as well. Proper resources are needed to be given to these students, and also based on their individual needs, because all students are unique. And more awareness and education about undocumented immigrants and students are needed. So basically just advocate for these group of students. Our conclusion from our findings, there are many solutions that should be offered, such as improved planning and renewing of materials in schools on how undocumented students can be supported. This can go also with improved planning and training for ESL teachers, better training and preparation for teachers to practice culturally responsive teaching, since most of these teachers teach in a multicultural classroom. Help immigrant students feel like they belong by making sure they are not excluded from certain activities or in the classroom. And advocacy for and improvements in DACA would greatly benefit and help out immigrant students. And with DACA, we could also help find a way to make a path for citizenship. And lastly, future studies for this research, we just created a survey asking immigrant and non-immigrant students for their opinions, and this would be anonymously. And we basically asked if they had any suggestions on what the college could do to better support these group of students. And we hope to use and collect data from these surveys at a later time.
Get to know and support undocumented students on your campus. Immigrant residents, including undocumented immigrant and DACA eligible residents, play an important role in the state's economy, contributing spending power and paying federal, state, and local taxes. All undocumented students deserve to feel safe on and off campus and have support in their academic-wise. They should have access to higher education in an equitable way, regardless of citizenship status or economic background. And that's it. Thank you.